Hello, my fellow BSers. Stefan Dragonspawn here, introducing episode 374, recorded on January 10th, 2022. And as usual, are Brett and Sean, our sexy BSer hosts. Take it away, Brett and Sean. The Year of the Tiger. Grrr, arg.
Welcome to Gaming and BS Tabletop RPG Podcast. I'm Sean.
And I'm Brett. Welcome to the show, folks. Welcome back. Stefan, thank you. That was fun. That was cool.
Thanks, Stefan.
That's good stuff. That is very good stuff. I know a lot of people out there will say they've got the best, environment, but I think we beat them. The BSers are so cool. They're such fun people.
For sure, man.
Oh, it's always so much fun.
If you are interested in introducing an episode of the show, we're still doing that. Just head over to gamingandbs.com/intro sign up. We'd love to have you do that. So,
absolutely.
Thanks. How you doing, Brett? It's been a little while.
Yeah, unfortunately, we wanted to go to an every other week, and then I had a family debacle. I posted this up, and I know, Sean, I think you said something in the community. Basically, my father has some. I don't exactly. Well, quite frankly, we don't know what's wrong. It's not good, and he's the caretaker for my mother who has dementia. So we're trying to figure out how to make sure he's taken care of and my mother taken care of. Figure out how to get nursing care there and so forth. It's been about a week now since I had him. He and I had him in the hospital trying to find out what was wrong. We think potentially it's an endocrine system failure. I don't know. But people have asked. That's the only reason I'm oversharing. But BSers have been incredibly kind. I've had some very nice messages from people wishing me the best and being very supportive. So thank you, everybody who's done that, and anybody who's even just thought a nice thing about the situation. It's pretty touching, honestly, because it sucks. It's not a lot of fun right now. So unfortunately, I don't know what that's going to do to BSerCon for me. I've got 2 games I wanted to run on Friday and Saturday. I promised Sean that by Wednesday evening, I will have my situation for the weekend sorted out. That's the big doctor visit day with Dad and my mom and so forth. So there's a lot going on there. I'm hoping answers and next steps will be forthcoming, but that could well completely fuck up my weekend plans because somebody's got to make sure that they stay alive and are healthy and taken care of. And that's me. I'm the one that's here.
Yeah, I don't think anybody will balk at that. So
no, I don't think that's anybody does. Like, hey, what the hell, man?
They may not know you. That's possible, but
that would be possible. Yeah. But anyway, again, thanks, Sean, and you've been great through this too. Just like because I caught you at the last minute, like, dude, I can't do this. You're like, hey, man, that's fine, that's cool.
No worries, man.
I know. I like with the Delta Green thing. I hate failing. And it pisses me off when stuff happens like that you can't control and stuff goes to shit, but it's got to get taken care of. So, man, it's been a while. Let's talk about something a little more fun. I had, I wrapped up I returned the Tomb of Horrors game. And,
hey, Brett. Hey, Brett,
yeah.
Did you kill anybody? Any deaths?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How many? How many? 1, 2? I mean, that's kind of weak.
How many died at the end? Let's see. 3.
3?
Yeah.
How long did you run that now?
Almost a year, I think.
Yeah. It's been that long.
It was, at least it feels like it. It was great, though. We had a lot of fun. It was a big... Lenny's character survived, and he was the only original character in the group. The only person who started with one character, and Jersey made it from section 1 all the way to the very end.
Does Lenny attribute that to player skill?
He said he'd like to call it player skill, but he knows it's luck. He was one of the people who got very cautious when things got really, really dangerous. He was very heroic and go do and go grab, and like heroic being like just leap forward, do the fighter thing, go do, take care of, and headstrong and go take care of that. And then when he saw a couple other people get wiped out, he's like, I think I'm gonna pull back a little bit, just pull back a little bit. So he didn't turtle up, right? But he checked himself. He checked his headlong rush a few times, which
Paid
I think
off?
saved him. Totally paid off. Yeah.
So you said this would be a hard campaign to top.
I think it will be. It's going to be really, really tough. It was a lot of fun, a lot of really good stuff. So I don't know. I've got another Greyhawk campaign that will come up, not next, but after what I've planned. I have a World of Darkness modern horror game I'm going to run. I'm calling The Horned King, and it should be pretty interesting. I found I'm going to get my images that I'm using for this thing. I found somebody posted this up. I cannot find the original Facebook post, but I found all the pictures. The pictures have the artist little logo on the bottom, so I can hopefully that'll help me find whoever did it and provide the proper credit. But it's really cool, and yeah, it's going to be a fun little horror something. Should drive some people insane, and we'll see who lives through that one. But that'll be a good palate cleanser. Alpha's kicking off pretty soon. A Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th edition, the newest edition. He's going to, which I think is Catalyst. I think he's doing that one. I can't remember who's doing it. Anyway, we make characters. He wants to do that. And I thought, I'll break from a bit. It's been fantasy games for a while. I'm like, hey, I got a hankering for something different. So I'm going to step over and do this modern World of Darkness horror game. Should be fun. And again, that is one of the better games of D&D I've run in a long time, though. That was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I think I may have mentioned this too. Some of the lessons I learned, like from my group, experience points are welcome. They don't want you level up. Hey, you level up. They don't want that. They like to track the numbers, spend the numbers. They like that.
So
absolutely fucking.
How did you incentivize them? How'd you give them XP? Did you do milestone, or would you do?
No, it was like by what they accomplished. Monsters killed, things done.
Gold?
We talked about it, and I said I'm not sure about gold, and they said, yeah, let's not do gold. At the end of it, a few people said, maybe we should have done gold because they're like, I probably could have got farther faster.
There was a debate on the Discord about those kind of details about XP milestone versus monsters versus gold, and there's an incentive there, right? Depending on what you dangle in front of the characters and how they act.
One of Matt Colville's latest videos is on rewards, and he talks about.
I saw that.
Did you see it?
I saw that and talked about it on a Saturday because I was talking specifically
It
about.
is wonderful.
Yeah.
It's a great video. If you have not seen it, check it out, because he talks about the old school world of like why gold mattered, and it does. Is it for everybody? No, but the idea, the concepts behind it, the way he explains it, I think is wonderfully insightful, and it does drive. When people couldn't make my AD&D Greyhawk game, they felt bad. Like, damn it. And I'm like, what? I'm like, they've missed other games and whatever. Like, I'm not going to get the XP, because they all agreed that was the rule. If you're not there, no XP for you. So if they couldn't make it or had to leave early or whatever, they didn't get all the XP. Like, God damn, I missed it. And it really drove them to do stuff. Not just and I told them, look, it's not just about killing monsters. If they uncovered plot points, that was worse stuff, and so on and so forth. So there was plenty to do. But having those kind of that tangible reward at the end of every session, that was very little Pavlov's dog. All right, let me add up my XP here. You could just see the drool.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool. It was a lot of fun.
To comment on Colville's video specifically for people that haven't seen it, he has talked about wanting to run games in the old style. So, you start out in a town, and then you would, you would explore or whatever. And he would be doing that in a 4th edition or 3.5 game, or even 5th edition. So the incentive systems, the type of game he was running was based on incentive systems done in the 80s, which is like gold and XP and monsters. And it was a different adventure type. And then you're not heroes in those systems. And then
not the same type of hero. Not the same type of hero. Right, where it borderline superhero, where like in 4th edition or 5th edition or even 3rd, where you start off kicking some serious ass right out of the gate.
Right. And then running 5th edition or 4th edition to some degree, though some wires would get crossed.
Yeah, gold doesn't matter.
Right.
Magic items, rare, kind of don't matter.
Right.
Right. In 4th edition, they really didn't matter. The other thing that he brings up in there around the 1st edition stuff and having this is the other piece I found was that with experience points being on the table for my group, and this is again just sample size of my crew, there was a level of investigation and curiosity that Colville talks about that I could definitely see happened versus when Alpha ran or I ran a more standard 5e style game, modern, whatever. I'm just picking on 5e because it's the one out there.
Right. We
always had a lot of fun playing it, but I think if I will run 5e again, I like the ideas that Matt Colville had in there, like little his benefits, the rewards type of option he had in there. Watch the video, you'll understand what I'm talking about. And the other thing is, I'm like, adding XP back in would be important for me, for my crew, because I learned that through this first E process. I'm like, next time I run a 5e game with them, I'm going to have experience points because it drove a desire to go and do and be a part of and really make sure they're at the game and just stay fucking engaged. There was nobody wanted to not check out all the stuff in the dungeon, right? There was a lot of, if people wanted to leave the dungeon early because, okay, I think we accomplished what we needed to, we got the MacGuffin thingy, okay, we should back out. And somebody go, I don't know, there's stuff here. That was a legit concern. Like, we need stuff. We absolutely need stuff because if we don't get the stuff, we can't have the gear because we need the gear for that. That's where our power comes from and so on and so forth. So it's a different style of play and a different reward system. So that's pretty cool. It was a lot of fun. So, man, that's my total sidebar on Greyhawk and 1st edition stuff. But what have you done gaming wise since you and I last talked?
Forbidden Lands.
Nothing?
Forbidden Lands is still going. Things are. We had a funny incident with a river crossing.
Somebody, okay, who died, Sean? Anybody? Kill anybody?
Pretty close. Almost killed Phil's character. Yeah, he was almost.
He almost drowned?
He almost drowned. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. He was. Yeah. Him and I think Wayne's character was sucking wind pretty bad. As a matter of fact, Wayne's character on the last one, he failed to make camp roll. So he would have been hit with lice. And with that, he would have taken a point of agility, and he only had 1 point, which would have made him broken in agility. So he had no agility left.
Oh, God.
I think it was, right? And then to make it more kind of coalesce with kind of the situation, instead of getting lice, since he just came out of a river, we just had him make camp, and he was infested with leeches, which would also
a slightly different parasite,
which would also make it kind of better because the agility piece, right, would definitely play a role in that. So that's been going. Tomorrow night, as of this recording, Cyberpunk Red is still going. I had a conversation with my buddy Joe over the weekend in Hawaii. So, talking about, he's in the second session of, this is the Curse of Strahd guys, right? Jeff and Joe and the gang and Andy. And Joe decided to jump on that bandwagon, and I'm just like, how's it going? Kind of told me. I said, okay, well, I'd love to play with you guys again, but here's kind of the situation. And we went back and forth, and I don't think anything's coming together there, unless it's like a play-by-post, maybe. So we'll see. Like he's in Hawaii. There's 4 hours difference now, and then when daylight savings time kicks off, it'll be 5 hours difference. And then, he's got 1 day off or 2 days. I can't play on a Tuesday at noon or whatever, or 10 o'clock at night for him.
Dude needs to find a local group.
Well, so
or time zone adjacent.
Yeah, so we'll see what that looks like. But I think, once, like I said, Cyberpunk Red potentially wraps up, I'll probably.
Is there any end sight for that one? And I'm not saying that
I don't know.
Negative.
I don't
because
that's the question. I haven't gone to Jimmy and said, hey, man, kind of what's your plan with this thing? And usually they'll play until Jimmy or the DM or the GM will usually come to a point where it's like, I think I'm going to wrap this up in like 2 more sessions. And since
I'm asking that because you and I talked about, knowing if the end is in sight and so forth. And
right.
Post that episode, the more I've thought about it, I got more questions from my crew. Like, hey, how's the Greyhawk thing? Are we close? What's next? Because they could feel the end coming. And when they couldn't feel the end of a few other games, you would get the question. And it turned out like it wasn't, we're sick of this shit. It was just like, just curious.
Yeah. So the next thing, I don't know if I could play. I don't think I want to do a grand campaign. I want to do like a series. And that series could be less than 10 sessions. So I don't know if that's another Forbidden Lands group that I kind of run in parallel with the other group, which would be fun. Very short, kind of done. It could be, part of me is like, let's bust out some old modules and I'll run Pharaoh or Tomb of the Lizard King, whatever. We'll just start out with, here's a module, 1 to 3. Run it. Hey, here's another module, 2 to 4. Mm-hmm. Who's got, and then after that, people have 2 or 3 characters and they're along the spectrum of levels. I'll say, hey, I'm going to run, this module. The only problem is when we used to run those, we could run them in one setting, or it would be the same group because we could just, we didn't have a life. We were kids.
Exactly.
So the tricky thing is getting the same people to show up the same consistently to finish that one module. So that's an idea, or, playing a multitude of other different games. Twilight 2000, I still want that charity game to happen, which is going to be on a whole nother spiel. So we'll see. I don't know. We'll see after BSRCon how things go and where all the dust settles, I guess.
Yeah, I'm kind of, and that's, I'm waiting for the personal dust with the folks to settle so I can be like, oh, this is what free time looks like now. Or, wow, this is, my life has changed slightly for next month, 2 months. How long is this going to be? What does it look like? So,
I am actually contemplating very heavily. I'm gonna have somebody that I'm gonna talk to about play by post, and I'll probably kick off a play by post. And if in my brain I have an idea of what works best for play by post, like the type of game, the type of people, the expectations, right? If I think about it, if it's a very combat adverse type game, right, makes a better play by post game, then I may run a Delta Green Impossible Landscapes play by post, which could take play by post. That thing could take 5 years.
I think my experience with play by post, whenever I did it back in the day with vampire stuff, or even with Avalon pieces and parts, it was always, I shouldn't say always, we had the most fun when it wasn't a combat play by post. There were a couple people in the group that I could do combat play by post because they didn't mind narrating back and forth without dice and just kind of working. Right. It was just a style thing for us. But there were a couple other people where we would get to a certain point and I'd say, this sounds like initiative. We'll take it up next session. And we'd be like, okay, cool. Then they'd be like, waiting for the next in-person. So they throw that 20 down and take a shot at it. But I could definitely see an investigation game. And even in a game like Delta Green, as deadly as it is, where combat is either avoided or you only get to make one mistake, that type of thing. It's fun to go for your guns in that game, no doubt. But, the mooks die quick. But your character, you don't want to get shot.
Right.
Right. So
I was thinking,
I could totally see that being a good mechanic, a good game for that.
Call of Cthulhu or Delta Green. And, this is the deal. Like, if there is combat, and then I think if I played by post ages and ages ago and it was short lived, but I think it was a 3-5 game, streamlined. Like, you only get 3 actions and then it's done. So I don't think the lethality or mortality rate was really cranked up, but you would state your 3 actions when you were about to get into initiative, and then those were narrated out in dialogue, and then that was it. Like, so it wasn't go until the monster's dead by the book. It was an abbreviated combat, if you will.
That's how I did it. I actually ran a small Avalon play-by-post. My buddies, Lenny and Beta, we did that. They're 2 characters, and it went really well for a very long time. But anytime it was a fight, the 3 of us liked to write and narrate back and forth, and it was fun. Like, I do this, I spin, I do that. I'd give them a dramatic something or other, and it was a great skin of your teeth kind of adventure winning. But there were no die rolls, and it worked out fine. And I think we had an expectation set. We knew the 3 of us know each other. We're really good friends, been playing together forever. We all very similar styles, approach. We understood it. So I think that what do I say? Anything that if you're very used to, I rolled a 20, give me a skill check, do this or that. Those are great tools. They really are. But some play-by-post can be trickier to do that. Although I'm positive somebody's going to listen to us right now and say, "Oh no, it's not. Here's a tool I've used. And here's the mechanism and some examples," which is some other good shit too. I mean, I recall people telling me stories about how they used the game master rolled all the dice and posted the results by using a auto generator or rolling them at their table or whatever. And everyone just went, "Look, honor system. I believe you're not going to lie to me."
Right.
Type of thing too. And again, it comes down to what you want to do and how you want to play it. So
yeah, and Delta Green is you can have them like, okay, if they have a skill and it's at a certain percentage, you don't have to have them roll. That's an option. Or you have them roll and you provide them the info. That system's pretty easy, straightforward. Like some of the other nuances is, in that downtime space when you start seeing a psychologist or psychiatrist and you're starting, but even that's a lot of role.
It's also
playing.
not uber, and it's not uber tactical where it's 5 foot squares matter, right?
Right.
And I'm just picking on the 5 foot squares. I mean, I love me a good tactical game. Right. Do not get me wrong. I love pushing lead on the table. It's a great deal of fun.
Yep.
But if you want to do play by post, and you're like, okay, so the fireball is X number of squares by this. Right. It's kind of like, all right, everybody on roll 20.
I think the concern with that is if I get into impossible landscapes, it's going to be, can you stick it out? So my perspective, if I were to do it, I think I would pick a smaller adventure, get the feel for it, and go, wow, that was fun. I could do impossible landscapes now. I got it. That's just me talking. Sure. Where if you bit off a big mother, you might be like, ooh, I should bigger my stomach on that one. That's fair. Yeah.
Just a thought.
Yeah. Sean usually doesn't think about shit like that either. Like, it'll be fine.
No, he doesn't. It'll
either fall apart or it'll just work itself out. Yeah. I don't know.
Which is some of the beauty of Sean. Sean's like, it didn't work. Yeah. You upset about it? Kind of. Whatever. Next.
I don't know. It could be a complete flop or could go nuts, and it went nuts in a good way. So
yeah,
we'll see.
I hope I can make it, man.
Yeah. Well, if you can't, there'll be another one. I'm sure there'll be another one.
I know.
In 2 hours, dude, like what, 80% of the games were full? It was crazy. Like, but it's not. It was crazy. Yeah, it's not a 1,000 game con, but still.
Doesn't have to be. Still fun. Yeah. Still cool.
It'll be fun.
All right. Let's random encounter.
Let's get into random encounter.
See if we can do a show.
All right.
I can tell folks right now this is probably going to be a long one, Sean.
Yeah, it's going to be long.
Too, so it's going to be a long show.
You don't get an episode every week, so the one you get will probably be a little longer now.
Like 8 hours long. You're like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Random encounter, a segment of the show where we field emails, voicemails, comments from social media. We got a few this week.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. Why don't you start the first one and I'll pick up from there?
All right, fair enough. Let me see. First one is going to be from Matt V. He writes, a lot of these are on Rival Adventuring, the Rival Adventuring party episode.
Oh, good. We specifically said, wow, we're not utilizing this as we can. Hit us. Give us some goods. All right.
So Matt says, hello, gentlemen, and Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you, Matt V. I haven't finished the episode yet, but I happen to be in front of my computer right now and won't write this if I wait. I have used recurring rivaling adventure parties a few times that I can remember, and it's usually in a Shadowrun campaign, though I used this some in Mutineer Zero as well, though slightly different. What I usually have done previously is introduced the parties on the same run, but they have slightly different paths, different goals in the same location. This is great because it allows the characters to join forces and get friendly with the other party, or at least not hostile right away. I usually make it at least one of them very amiable and reasonable, even if the entire party isn't that way. Then I'll usually repeat this once or twice so the bonds between PCs and NPCs grow. He continues. Then I like to have the parties both be going after the same objective, such as the prototype freeze ray gun in a corp run. Then this brings up multiple dilemmas. They are infiltrating a corp, so going into open warfare immediately is tantamount to suicide, and both sides know it. Do they make some sort of arrangement and combine forces to where did I lose my strip? Combine forces to get the item and then decide what to do? Do they each go on their own and the first one wins? Do they make some sort of deal and split the Nguyen or yen, or do they go into open warfare after the run? I've seen all these scenarios play out, and it makes for very memorable game sessions, especially when the people you are drinking with after a run 2 sessions ago that you were chummers with are now trying to blow your brains out. Not sure if you will touch on this, but just wanted to throw it out there as a great way to use rival parties. I also have a topic idea based on a previous episode from several months ago now. I remember Brett mentioning AJ saying he didn't want to min-max anymore because he liked role-playing more than power gaming or optimization. Can't remember the exact term. When I was part of the online Pathfinder Society community, we would often get into debates over this issue relatively frequently. I don't think optimization and min-maxing have absolutely anything to do with role-playing, and I don't think they are the same thing either. I know some people disagree, but in my experience, the best role players at my tables are almost always at least optimized, if not min-maxed as well. And I can constantly remember one of the players who never min-maxed or optimized. I picked this feat because it fits my character even though it's pointless, who thought it made him a better role player. Then he would whine almost every game session about how he was worthless and still argued he was a better role player because of those decisions, even though his RP at the table was more on the mediocre side. So is role-playing what happens at the table in-game, character build decisions, especially when not advancing your shtick, both? Neither. So I thought it might be interesting to actually define these terms and maybe elaborate on where you stand and why. These are somewhat nebulous terms, but not such that you can't come to the conclusion, except for maybe power gaming, which I'm not even 100% sure what it means. But the internet, which is never wrong, seems to have defined it as knowing rules so well you can use what you have for maximum advantage in every situation. Anyway, congrats on 7 years, and thanks for doing such a great job for so long. I came in early during year 4, have listened to every episode since and the back catalog, and you are still the only gaming podcast I've found that I always tune into and enjoy. Thanks.
That is a lot of podcasts to listen to. So, Matt, thank you. That's awesome.
Matt's a trooper, man.
Damn right.
Jeez.
Probably some real stinkers in there too. So thank you, Matt, for suffering through it.
Yes.
So that is some awesome stuff. When I heard Sean reading through that, I'm like, oh my God, what a beautiful setup on that Shadowrun game.
Right.
The rival party's like, hey man, we're buds. It's cool. And then wham, it starts to fall apart. The challenges come. I like that. That's a great way to do it. That is really well done. I'm definitely stealing that, dude. That's good stuff. The other, when you mentioned AJ talking about not wanting to min-max because he liked role-playing more than power gaming or optimization, I think you're right there. It was kind of a, probably, I don't recall the exact words I used, but it was probably more of a throwaway comment. And you're right. It does deserve some kind of more of a deeper dive or a dig into it, right? Because we talk about that stuff like, oh, so-and-so is a power gamer. Oh, they're always min-maxing. Oh, the least optimized are great role players and so on. When, I don't know about that. I think that's a good point. Because that person who always takes this is the most cool, like your example about the person taking a feat and then whining that they're useless and so forth. I think there's also I have seen and played with folks who are wonderful role players and will also maximize the ever living fuck out of every character they've ever made. Their character's unstoppable killing machine, wizard, sorcerer, pilot, whatever, but they're also amazing role players. And I think what AJ was getting at, and again, I'm recalling it out of the dust of my brain, but I think AJ was getting at, I want to focus on something else instead of just looking at my numbers. He was doing it from a math perspective. And when I say that, he was like, I wanted to make sure he had the best pluses. I had the best opportunities to always win or always score the hits, always do the most damage type of thing. And he was ignoring anything other than being effective in combat. So again, though, is that the only type of optimization? Not necessarily. You could be a character who's totally optimized for every social interaction and so on and so forth. So, Matt, that's a damn good topic, man. I think I'm going to definitely add that one into the hopper. That's got to go in there. So thank you for bringing that one up. That's good stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
Very good. All right. Who's up next here? Josh, our Uber mileage leader, writes in on rivaling adventuring parties. Hello and Wilmette. I enjoyed the discussion on rival adventuring parties and have some feedback. You were very focused on rival parties in the context of an adventure. I've had great experience with rival parties in the context of the game world. You've never met them in a dungeon or on a mission, but they're out there making decisions and changing the game world. Delay a side quest to do something else. Maybe the rivals did it off camera, or maybe they screwed it up. Offend the union boss at a social gathering. Maybe the rivals start getting her quest hooks and the PCs don't hear about it till after the fact. Need a magic MacGuffin to solve a problem? Maybe the rivals have it for the right price. PC died a blazing fireball. Maybe they can poach a new member from the rivals. To kit them out, all you need is race, a class, and personality for each member. Players and characters creation ADHD will enthusiastically create them for you. Players with character creation ADHD will enthusiastically create them for you. My gaming group still reminisces about the assholes of Mithril Hall, a rival party from their prior campaign. A little competition can go a long way. Good day and good gaming all, Joshua. Josh, that's a neat idea, having them kind of off camera, right? Like somebody you hear about. I can think of some of the Oceans movies. I've seen a couple of them, like the Ocean's 11 stuff. You're like, oh, I heard about that guy. Oh, yeah, that's that group, or that's their thing. And you don't always meet them. You hear about a rival group or a band or another pack of people who do jobs or whatever the case is, right? A crew is out there doing something. I could definitely see that as being effective. They're rivals, but you don't have to even meet them right up front. And you can sprinkle it out there and then develop it if anybody gives a crap, right? That's the other cool thing about that, Josh, is that if you throw it out there and you say, hey, rival group does X, and your player characters go, oh, well, good for them. One less thing for us. Are you okay? Rival group does Y. And the PC start getting interested, then you can develop and develop. But if they never care about it, maybe you could drop it and don't have to flesh out the whole party type of thing. So, that's another damn good idea. What do you think, Sean? You like that? I think that's good.
I do think it's good. Yes.
I like the idea of having them be in the context of the gaming world instead of just the individual adventure. I like that. That's a broader approach I had not thought about. That's good stuff, man. All right, sir, over to you.
All right. Next one is all part of the plan comments on rival adventuring parties. I have a big beef with this because a huge detail of RPGs that I feel like is always inferred in the books, but practically never implemented in-game is the simple fact that the party members are not the only adventurers out there. It's a huge plot hole, I feel like, and I find it in most games. It bugged me so much that I wrote an entire campaign about it. Some notable details from my now mostly lost campaign notes include: the players are rookies and not well known. They know of several famous adventurers who have been around for a while. The history of the world has been heavily influenced by previous adventurers who are long since or recently deceased. The players will meet or interact with around 15 other adventuring parties of varying level and alignment all through the campaign. Their interactions, will influence future quests. They can create allies that will help them or even ask for their help later, create enemies that will seek revenge either through violence or defamation. And over the course of the campaign, the rookies become famous, well-known adventurers. Some quest patrons hire multiple parties and insist they work together to handle more difficult quests. For example, the second quest, following the player's small increase in notoriety, was an invitation to join a party of 50 adventurers hired by the kingdom to deal with a dragon. Spoilers, it ended with a double cross by one particular band of miscreants who steal the dragon's egg and flee to a neighboring rival kingdom. Past adventurers rise from the dead. Information and rumors lead the players to misjudge various other characters, and even NPCs can change and evolve over time, whether the player characters choose to believe it or not.
I like the idea of this bullet point list. All part of the plan has this cool list here, right? So even if I went through and said, I don't know if I like this one, I don't know if I like that one. We've talked about making a list before, and the power sometimes of writing it down, like the random encounter list. Like, oh, that's what this is, that's what that is. And I think a cool piece here is if we say, this is, I think, and I don't know if all part of the plan meant to do this, but I see this bullet list as like, damn, that's a tool I could use if I've never implemented it, which I really haven't, the rival adventuring party. What do I want them to do? Write down some options like this. And then if you're going through and you say, wow, okay, cool. You know what? Option 3 is the one I want to deploy right now. You can cross it off, make a mark, whatever it is you want to do, and say, boom, players meet or interact with an adventuring party, intentions influence future quests. And you say, bam, I implemented that tonight. Perfect. Awesome. Love it. I think that's a damn good way to go, because then you don't feel like you're stuck. You can have your adventuring party, your rival one, and you're like, I want to use it, but I don't know how, or where do I? What's the most effective way to do it? But if you've got it waiting in the wings in this series of 3, 4, 5, however many you want options to deploy them, I think that could be pretty handy, because as we all know, the player's going to pick, you've got 3 options written out, they're going to pick option 4 and option 8. That's just what they do. But if you've got this list, you'd be like, aha, they chose option 8. No idea what that option is, but by God, I'm going to slap this in there. I think that's pretty cool. That's just a little tactical thing, and all part of the plan. I don't know if, like I said, I don't know if you meant to do that, but that's what this is good feedback, and I like the idea of taking it and making it a checklist or an options list for that rival adventuring party. I like it. I think that's pretty cool. That's good stuff. You good, Sean? Move on.
I am good. Go ahead.
Let's see here. Broken Ruler, our buddy Todd, comments on the rival adventuring party here. I've always thought about using a rival party adventure campaign, but it never got around to it. But I could definitely think of a couple of groups where rivals would have kept them on track, for fuck's sake. A number of shopping sessions we could have fast-tracked, because while our intrepid heroes were out looking for matching capes, yes, this actually happened, maybe there are far less vain heroes who crack the first vault's code and are going to make off with all the glory. One alternate version of this has been on my mind for years is to play the criminals pulling off the heist in one section, then play the detectives in the next. Use the clues you left behind to track down the culprits and play off your own memories of the heist rather than relying on interpreting what the GM tells you. One of these days. I like that idea of using the rival adventuring party to keep focus and keep things on track. If I think about not only just as Todd mentions, goddamn, as Todd mentions with the shopping for matching capes or something silly, or they're arguing with the blacksmith once again on a +1 sword or whatever they're arguing about. Anytime that they're kind of meandering, milling about, or they're turtling up on you, they don't want to go, they don't want to do. If they know for a fact that the Order of the Cloven Hoof is going to get the job done if they don't do it, it's a clock, right? The clock is ticking. Tick, 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 tick. It's going to come around, man. If you don't do it, the Cloven Hoof is going to. What are you going to do about it? Going to let them have it? Going to steal it from them later? What do you want to do with it? So there's something to be said about that. I think about, when I say clocks, of course, I think our limited exposure to Blades in the Dark together, but that type of tool could be used anywhere. And I like that idea, because you can, as a game master, And even as a player, you can come and go, wait a minute, guys, if we don't do X, these folks, these cats, these other folks, they're going to step in and take this from us, or they're going to apply pressure to us. If we sit here too long, they'll find us. We got to keep moving. We got to keep going. So there's something to be said about that. I like that idea too. That's really good, Todd. Thank you. That's good stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Todd.
We good, man? Anything else?
No, we should get to the main topic.
That was some good shit too, folks. That was really good. Like Sean and I said initially, we didn't have a whole lot around that, so that was good. Thank you.
All right, main topic. Where is it here? What are we talking about this week, Brett?
Well, I want to talk about a rough draft. So one of the things that people like to compare, my daughter and I, Ilana and I were just talking about this because she's planning a game for EverCon. And she was getting frustrated that she likes to write stories, little short stories and so forth. And she's like, this is different enough or difficult. She's having a hard time. And I told her, I said, one of the things that people like to compare RPGs to is novels, screenplays, writers, right? We like to say, hey, we're writing a thing, or it's similar to. And I think one of the things that we really need to understand and appreciate about those products, that they're heavily edited. They're managed and modified long before they come to us, right? So you go see the movie, if the movie sucks, one of the first things you'll hear, or you'll hear this even about an RPG, no one bothered to edit this thing. Oh, where's the proofreader? Right? We're looking for a polished something. When we create an adventure, a campaign, or even a simple encounter, we need to understand that it's a rough draft. Even if you run that adventure, encounter, campaign multiple times, it's still no better, in my opinion, the second, third, or maybe even fourth draft. You know, GMs and players, I think we need to accept that mistakes will happen sometimes, and a tweak may need to be made on the fly to fix a problem that you may or may not have ever encountered before. We're like, oh my God, I didn't know what to do here. It's a draft. I can change this. Now, it might get ugly from here, but I know some people will say, you know, never fudge dice, blah, blah, blah. And some people don't like it. But I know some folks, myself included, who will fudge dice sometimes because I designed this encounter incorrectly. I fucked this up. I need to make an adjustment, you know. Or restarting a campaign because of a TPK, or like, oh my God, that went horribly wrong, or holy shit, everything fell apart. I think there is I think the other part about some of this is that when we expose people to the fact that we're adjusting and making changes, and it's rough draft, and we're kind of fixing or editing on the fly, if you will. I think what's interesting is that some folks that I've encountered and that I've seen online, and even friends of mine that I've had over the years, they have an extra, they add a level of believability to something that's written down rather than something that's just made up, right? So they have this feeling that if it's written down, it's better, stronger, faster, and whatever. But again, when it's a campaign, even when you pick up Storm King's Thunder, or you grab the Ravenloft campaign, Curse of Strahd, anything that's published, Possible Landscapes, it's still a draft for you. They wrote it, they play tested it, that's true, but they've never encountered your players that you're playing with right now at the table, and the decisions they're making with the characters they made, the time of day, phase of the moon, and everything else that goes into
yeah,
it.
that's for damn sure.
The moon phases, they get you.
I know.
So, do you agree with me, Sean? That's kind of just I just want to throw that out there as is just a general kind of discussion topic for you. And I started looking at more of the stuff I put together. I'm like, it's a draft. Whatever I put together, my daughter was talking to me. She was trying to write this adventure idea up. And I said, look, here's the deal. I started Avalon on my own, but the final product that Coded helped me put together has many people's fingerprints all over it. It's a more polished thing than if I ever did it on my own. Sean does a lot of work to clean up the podcast, take this, organize that. If we have a mistake, he polishes and fixes. And we try to make it as good as you can. When you listen to us live, that's the rough draft, right? That's where we're like, fuck, this didn't work, or, oh, shit, we had a sound problem. but we organize that, things happen, you fix and adjust. And sometimes I think when we get frustrated with ourselves when we have to make a ruling, we can't remember what the drowning rules are. The chase scene rules for whatever are fucked up. We got to sit down, try to fix it, reorganize it. And I think sometimes even as players, it's advantageous for us to remember that it is a rough draft, and even our own ideas as players can be a rough draft. So when I say, hey, my character wants to accomplish this goal, I'm thinking of doing it that way, source the table, ask them, hey, this sounds cool, whatever the case is. But anyhow, it's not, I don't mean to take every role-playing game and make it a writer's table game, but just, I don't think there's any other art form. There's art forms similar to RPGs, but they're not RPGs. What's theater like? What's stage theater like? Is it exactly like a movie? No. Is it exactly like TV? No. Is it exactly like improv theater? No. Parts of it, but not all of it. Right? It's its own self-contained entity. And I think one of the pieces that is contained within the RPG space is that these things we're doing, I think about you, Sean, when you run Forget About It. Right? It's not the same event. You have to do different things every time. It's not the exact same every time you run it, right?
No, because we got pesky players that do different things. That's why.
Bastards, all of them bastards,
bitches.
So, what do you think about that, Sean? Is that thought of our campaigns or adventures being drafts? Do you think, okay, cool, who fucking cares, or do you think, does that help you at all, or what do you think about that idea?
Well, I think the concept is interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
The only caveat I would have with that is that drafts are usually, like you mentioned, are associated with something you are trying to produce. And I get that the game is something like a session. And
it's a thing being produced.
Yeah, it is. But when you're doing, say, like a video or an audio or writing a book or a short story, there's a sense of control that goes into that piece. And I think that if we exert that type of control on something like a role-playing game, that's not going to work. That's where you get into bad game mastering, or you're trying. The GM is trying to tell their story.
Yep.
Right, and not have the have it develop through play.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's where I'm saying is that if we all look at it and say, hey, it's a draft of a sort, and all of us at the table are trying to produce the thing. The game master came up with the scenario. We're all trying to produce the thing together. It's a bit of a writer's table piece,
sure,
in a way.
Yes,
but the other component is then, as game masters, that when you're running an encounter, and the bounty hunters are kicking the shit out of your Star Troopers, you're like, holy crap!
Stormtroopers.
This was supposed to be I'm going generic. Okay. Star Troopers is generic.
Smart move.
But anyway, so whatever's happening, right? So the bounty hunters are kicking the crap out of your PCs, and you're like, this shouldn't be happening. This is supposed to be a throwaway encounter. I wrote this adventure. I designed this campaign, whatever it is. This is supposed to be an encounter to whet their appetite to go after blah, blah, blah. And the player's dice are cold. I can't not hit. Oh my God. I've critically wounded and taken down 75% of the party. Wow.
Right.
Do I play it to its conclusion and say too fucking bad? First night, everybody TPK dead. Yes, says Sean. Yes.
Yes.
What I'm saying is that if you, as the game master, say, I might need to change that. And changing it on the fly, I think is acceptable. It's acceptable to me because I look at these things. I haven't used the term as a draft before, but when I have an encounter and I modify the monster a little bit, or I add some hit points to it because, wow, this is supposed to take a little bit longer, or I want this to be a little more thrilling, or, whatever, I need to make an adjustment to this encounter. I don't feel bad about doing that. I don't feel like I'm cheating. And I know some players and some just gamers in general think that that's cheating, or they don't like the modification at all. They're like, hey, look, if you wrote it and it failed, whatever, write better next time, design better next time. And I think it's really hard to do, because even really good game authors and designers and writers and all that stuff, they still have yet to encounter my gaming style, my players' gaming styles, or you and yours, whoever's listening, right? So we don't know what's going to do. So let me throw this at you. So in Rime and the Frost Maiden, spoilers, so if you haven't played it yet, there are people are trying to appease the Frost Maiden through human sacrifice in certain towns. There is nothing in that adventure that I can find that says you should try to stop that, or what happens if the players try to stop human sacrifice, or it's really not like a focal piece of the campaign. Now, I've got some players that if I tell them, yeah, and they're sacrificing people, they're like, okay, fine, stop, fuck. The campaign stops until we solve the human sacrifice problem. Right? I've got some players that would focus in on that and want to solve that. That is not a focal point of that campaign. I've seen some folks online say that is a design flaw. And I'm like, I don't know if I call it a design flaw per se. I didn't even think about it as an issue until I started to see it online, where people said, I was running this. My players encountered human sacrifice. The campaign ground into a weird ass halt because the campaign didn't tell me what to do, type of thing, right? And that's where I'm like, even if you buy it and it's a published adventure and you've got it, it's never going to account for everything. Yes, maybe that is a glaring omission. I don't know how you want to account for it. But if I have this, let's say, you've got this human sacrifice thing going on and your character's like, wow, that sucks. Well, I'll tell you what, let's go stop the Frost Maiden and we'll deal that. That should clear up the human sacrifice thing. They walk away from it. That's totally possible.
Yeah.
But if you have to modify it, if you have to change it a little bit, I think that's okay. If you have to add something to the adventure, if you have to modify that encounter, say, okay, the players chose to go fix the human sacrifice problem. That wasn't in the original adventure you wrote or designed or what you planned. It's okay. You don't have to feel like you failed. You don't have to feel like the adventure sucks or whatever. There's some work to be done there. It needs to be changed a little bit because it's a draft. That thing has never encountered you and your players. You're giving me a weird face, dude. Is it a bad
cat litter thing went off again?
I can hear it.
I know.
Yeah.
So are you talking about doing it on the fly or doing it before you present it? Like, I'm reading this. This doesn't make sense. I'm going to change it.
Totally, any and all.
Okay.
And the reason I'm saying that is because I think we need to start looking at these things, or at least if you have the ability to say, oh, look, it's a draft. It's okay. I like the bones of what's here. I'm going to make some notes right in my book if I'm a blaspheming type of person, or make notes on the side like a good, logical person. I think that's fine. When I see reviews of a game product and someone goes, it didn't account for X and this is poor design, blah, blah, blah. There are some things that I think could be considered poor adventure design, right? Like the only way to advance is to make a pass or fail test. If you don't make the pass or fail test, you only get one try, the campaign falls apart. We could argue that's bad design. But otherwise, as we start doing these things, especially when we're writing it ourselves, we're designing our own stuff, we're creating our own campaigns and so forth. I think for me, and when I was explaining it to my daughter earlier today, and I explained it to my son a while ago, I said, for me, thinking about the stuff as a draft that I'm going to practice, I'm going to try with my group. I think this will work. Let's see how it goes. I have hopes for it. I want it to work. I want this encounter to function properly, with the bugbears or the bounty hunters or whatever I've got going. But I'm open to it failing in some way. I'm open to maybe having to modify it. I'm open to maybe having it go completely sideways. That's fine. and not being too tied up in it, because you're learning as how this group plays and so on and so forth. Sean,
you seem
no, I'm
that
sad.
seems a little reckless, Brett. I don't know.
Seems a little reckless.
Seems like you're. I don't know, man. It seems
A little too wishy-washy
not
for you.
wishy-washy. It seems like you
want a harder
you're
line?
walking the edge, man. Like right on that cliff. Somebody just go poop, and like you're
Push me right
right
over.
over the edge.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose, God, it would go against everything in my being to
Nice.
to like want to flex. But I suppose, I mean, why not? Why not? I guess it depends. It depends on the situation.
And maybe this doesn't bother you, man, but do you ever find yourself when you read a campaign or something, or you're working out something on your own, and if it's not working, you feel hamstrung, like I don't know what to do, or I can't change it? Do you ever feel like you can't modify it? You ever get that feeling?
I have that feeling
I'm asking.
when I'm making up my own stuff.
Yeah, I'm saying it from a point of it's happened to me, right? But so the reason I'm asking is because for me, it became when I started, and I didn't think about it with this term, right? I don't even know how I got my brain there, but I was thinking about it as a draft. Like,
Yeah,
this
you
is
write
something I maybe
newspaper
explain to
articles,
somebody.
and
Yeah, I'm like, well, let's just try this. Let's see what happens. Trial and error, I used to call it, or like, hey, I think this ought to work. Here's some shit I threw together. But think of it as a rough draft or a draft version, or almost ready for the editor, whatever phrasing I want. But that made me, as a game master and as a player, just relax. When I encountered, when my buddy Nick was running a Conan campaign, and we ran into an encounter that was not going the way Nick expected it to. It was very obvious. He planned a thing. It was not fucking working at all. And one person was getting a little annoyed. And I just leaned over and said, hey, that's fine. That's cool. It's just an encounter. We'll be fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry. It's just a monster. We'll get through this.
But
Don't worry.
I think you can alleviate all of that if you,
By being perfect.
well, if you just present the problem as the problem.
Explain.
Okay, before I explain, you come up with an example. Okay, Nick, okay, you kind of touched on it. Nick had the encounter. I don't have all the details, right? Like what that meant. Like, can you give me more details of what, like, did it?
Yeah, so there's a puzzle we were supposed to solve.
Okay.
And if we failed or did basically what ended up happening, instead of the result that we'd all hoped for, we ended up getting essentially teleported. And we lost everything. It was like tantamount to you wake up naked in a field, all your gear's gone.
So is Nick running a published adventure or not? Okay.
No, he's
creating it. Okay.
No, he created it. Yep.
And there was the obstacle was to solve the puzzle.
Yep.
And you guys didn't? Or
No, we blundered it. We totally blundered it. Yeah, we totally blundered it.
And in so doing, Nick thought you guys would be able to walk through it, like solve it.
I think when he and I talked about it afterwards, he's like, I didn't think like the worst possible thing would happen, but that's exactly what happened.
Okay.
So I've thought about that since. And one of the things I didn't bring up that exact example to my daughter today, but I told her, I said, do not create something that you're not willing, or that you, how do I say this? Don't create something you're not willing to live with, in a way.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So if you build a trap,
Expect
and there's a 1 in 4 chance that everyone dies, it has to make new characters based on a bad die roll.
Right.
Because everyone, Brett rolls a d4. If he rolls a 1, the world explodes and everybody dies.
But expect that one to be a possibility. Or otherwise, don't have Brett roll.
Exactly.
Right.
Then you've got to take it
Yes.
out. And sometimes, though, that's where, from my perspective, I look at that and go, wow, I built this cool thing. Whoa, won't this be fun? I've got the world explodes if Brett rolls a 1. Okay, great. And then through the process, if you're paying attention and you're looking at it in that draft mode, like, okay, how's this playing? How are we doing? Where are we at? Brett's going to roll. He rolls a 1. You look at the chart, and maybe you should inverse the chart. Maybe let's not blow up the world. We don't have to say the world blows up, everybody dies. There's no saving throw. Nope, no save. It says so right here. Fuck you, you're all dead. You don't have to do instant super tetanus. You can ignore it, modify it, do something to change it, because you realize at that moment, I'm oversimplifying the Nick's situation, so there was much more nuance than this. I'm way simplifying it. And if you look at that and say, oh my God, I created a monster here. I have a thing, a design, a piece of it that isn't, it's going to do more damage than I thought it would. Or wow, that's not, I didn't think anybody would roll a 1, I just thought it would be fun to have. Like, why did you do that? But we learn these things because we'll be creating, a lot of times you're creating alone. As game masters, we're not talking to each other, man. I don't sit down with my players and say, hey, I've got this really cool idea for this next encounter. What do y'all think? I planned it out just like this. We're trying to keep this shit secret and trying to surprise people and all this stuff. And we end up doing a lot of discussion with ourselves. And we come up with this clever idea where Parley pretty damn sure is very fucking clever, really cool, and so on and so forth. And you write it down so it adds some extra verve and meaning, and then it lays out there, and you're like, oh my God, the worst possible thing happened, and my chart says the world explodes. Don't do that. You can change it. Don't. So if you remember that this is a draft. So what were you saying?
So in the genuine sense of the word, if it is that epiphany, like, oh damn, this, I shouldn't have wrote it that way, or I shouldn't have set it up in that manner, I shouldn't have put that entry in the weird table that I could roll on.
Yep.
Then I am wholly on board with it being considered a draft in the sense that we're talking.
I'm talking about. Yep.
Yes. And then I would be like, then you need to self-edit and go, why is that in there? And why should I expect Brett not to roll a 1? And 1 is the world explodes. So I should probably remove that, either do it on the fly, inverse the table like you mentioned, and actually get rid of it. Like if you run it again,
scratch.
Like it's not in there.
Yeah.
Because I think we get into these. There is a.
I actually, to a media piece, I actually had to do something similar to that in my Tomb of Horrors game, where I went, I am not doing this. If I follow the advice written in this adventure, this is going to be
Tomb of Horrors.
I'm not doing
is a bad example.
This is I'm going to say the return to Bruce Cordell wrote it in the larger piece when they're in the city of Moyle and the Fortunes of Conclusion and so forth. I'm like, I wanted to have not balanced, I had this idea in my head. It was like a fighting chance.
Sure.
Smart play should blah blah blah. If I did every trick that was listed out there, they'd have never made anywhere close. They'd have fucking murdered them all.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't do it. I'm like, I can't, I'm not going to do that because, and I also got to a point where it was a slog to do certain things, and they forgot one thing to release the Phantom Flyer to get them from point A to point B. They did everything else except for one thing. In order to find the thing, they would have had to go back through like 13 different towers, room by room, blah, blah, blah. Should I do that? Fuck no. Shortcut. Boom. Answer. Move on. Anyway, I interrupted you again, which is my curse. Sorry.
Yeah. So
So you had a point you were desperately trying to make.
I think if you put something into place, or you design something, you write it down, or you're running a published adventure, and it doesn't make sense, or it shouldn't be in there because it just, whatever the reason. Specifically, I think when it comes to like pretty extreme things, like you were saying, like you roll a 1, the world like explodes, or or if they don't pass this test, the adventure comes to a screeching halt. They can't get the MacGuffin, whatever that is. And, you're right. Some people would look at it as a design flaw. Sure. I think in some situations, it is very much a design flaw. If you can change it either on the fly or in future iterations, then great. It's the draft piece. And you have to be able, yes, and then I agree. Understanding it is a draft and that it isn't like the be-all, end-all, and that you could change it and adapt on the fly, then fantastic. And it puts you in a specific headspace where it's not you screwed up the module because you changed the canon of the module to be something that it shouldn't. many times, I think we just get into this weirdness. And I don't know if it's necessarily new GMs either. Sometimes I think we like to point new GMs and less experience, and they feel like they have to go buy the book, and they maybe buy a book.
Well, I'll tell you, I know people who specifically don't like buying published adventures because they don't want to change them, quite frankly. I've talked a couple friends of mine from back in high school, early in college. We would talk about this. They only, rolled their own. Why are you rolling your own? I don't like having to run somebody else's stuff. Like, we can always change it. Well, then what's the point? That would be the answer. Right? So let's say you're running Rime of the Frost Maiden, and you decide, look, human sacrifice is not a good idea for me to have with this group. I'm going to rewrite that.
Well,
I'm going to
change that, but I think that's a little short-sighted for folks that whimsically.
Oh, it's totally short-sighted. It's like baby out with bath,
right?
Whatever.
Yeah, throw the baby out with the
terrible.
bathwater.
Yeah,
and I think the
idea.
reason is because my excuse for running published is like, man, my brain is dry in the creativity scene. However, so they have a good, even if I don't run it verbatim, it gives me a starting point or some things I can work with. So I could,
Correct.
you know what I'm saying? So it's not like,
absolutely.
Yeah, and some of that, like writing a Ravenloft, Curse of Strahd, Rime of the Frost Maiden, some of those big juggernaut adventures are no freaking joke, man. And it comes over time if you're running your own homebrew. But if you're going to sit down and go, I don't want to run that because, well, that's somebody else's stuff. I'm going to do my own. And you pound that out. Good on you. Great. But that's a lot of work and effort and time.
It is. And I think sometimes when we do that, there's some potency to I'm running a published adventure. If I change it, I've talked about this before. I've cheated it, or I shouldn't edit it. I should run it as is. Again, I'm saying it's still a draft for your group. Whether it's been edited before it got to your table, just makes it readable, right? Whether it works for your group, it's going to take some work. And I think sometimes, myself included, when I have created an idea for a campaign or an idea for an encounter or something, the more fun I started to have is when I was like, this is a neat idea. Let's see what happens. Right? Let's look at it as a draft. I'm going to throw this out there and see if they destroy it, love it, hate it, whatever happens, and we'll move on. And I believe I've developed a pretty finely tuned sense for like, wow, this is not landing. Moving on.
Yeah.
It's like the stand-up comedian says a joke and goes, wow, this is not the crowd. This is not the crowd for millennial jokes. Ooh. We're moving on, right? This is not, and it's a similar type of tone. But sometimes when we write a thing, we put all this creative energy into it. We did it ourselves. We sat down after work, after school. We put together this dungeon. We did all this stuff. We put all our heart and soul into it. And it is difficult to think of it sometimes as a draft because it gets ready for prime time. I got this. We're good to go. We're good. And realizing, leave yourself the room, leave yourself the ability to realize that maybe you made a mistake or like, wow, this isn't working well. It's not landing. I need to adjust it in some way, shape, or form. And even if you don't do it this time, bring it back up and modify for next time.
No game survives contact with the players.
and no written work survives contact with the game master.
The dungeon didn't land.
Yeah.
It didn't land.
It didn't land. Just didn't work.
Land. It was one of those bad nights at the Improv, man.
Yeah, it just didn't work.
No.
But I think for me anyway, and I don't know if this helps anybody else or not, but it was a phrase, thinking of it as a draft. I used to say, I'm throwing shit on the wall. I'm going to try this out. Let's see if it works. But now just kind of concisely saying it's a draft. How rough of a draft is it? Well, I've run this same type of encounter 10 different times. Pretty good at this. Hey, Sean, how's that? Forget about it going. Pretty good. You ready? Yeah, I've run it a bunch. I can pretty much deal with it. You're ready to edit on the fly. You're ready to modify it. You came in with a pretty solid draft, a pretty solid screenplay, but you're ready for the actors to take it a little crazy. You're ready for the people reading and playing their parts and putting info into you to do stuff. You're like, okay, let's just move. We can change that. We can adjust this and so forth. And again, it's a practice thing. Like, we got to get used to it. But for me, I really think that realizing I can change things, sometimes on the fly. I could fudge a die roll, or I could add a monster and go, wow, they're chewing through these goblins. I could add 10 more goblins because I need 2 more. Because where I tactically made a mistake and put the NPC bad guy, she's got to run. It's going to take her 3 rounds to get there based on movement. Fuck, I need to keep the players away from her to keep her alive. I could magically, you know what? Fuck it. I'll throw 10 more goblins at them and see what happens. You know, that's okay. You undersold yourself on the number of goblins you needed to keep the party busy. They're going to smoke the goblins, right? You're not worried about that. You're just worried about it went too fast. It didn't have the oomph you wanted it to, or whatever the case is.
Hey,
and some people will say, fucking let it die and fix it next time. That's legit too.
Yeah.
But I don't mind fixing it.
Well, sometimes you just gotta, know, like, it's not always gonna be a home run every time you go to bat.
Exactly. And sometimes you could throw that draft out there. You're going to encounter the draft and you're gonna be like, well, that stunk. It didn't work. We've all had failures. You and I have talked about many times on the show. I tried a campaign idea, that failed. Tried to encounter, not so good. But if you start to think of these things as drafts and practice, like, okay, I put this together, I threw it at the editors, they threw it back to me and said, not good enough, try harder. That's okay. It's not the end of the world. And I think we put a lot of thought and energy into all of this stuff. And I think the same could be said even from a player's perspective. You build these characters, you put a lot of effort and energy into it. And sometimes I think, this may be overly bold, but sometimes I think when some players, like, I don't ever want my character to die until the end of the campaign, or it has to be traumatic or whatever it is we have a thing. Sometimes I've encountered this sometimes where some players have what I think is legit reasoning for that. And what I also sometimes I think is like, I have a set thing. I'm going to tell this story come hell or high water. From a player's perspective, I've seen the same thing. And they get pissed if they're not allowed to tell their character's story the way they want it told. And I think that comes to when we talk about, the truth is at the table, learning things through play. And when we've talked about, like, hey, sometimes it's okay, let your players change their character as the campaign starts 2 sessions in, like, can I do a skill change? Can I do because it really seems like that type of editing and that type of massaging of the draft that is the character, I think is equally as important. And realizing that it's just a game, this shit's malleable, and you can modify it. And if you've written out a campaign, or you've written out these multiple encounters, you got this Geralt dungeon or the space station, whatever it is you've got, and you realize partway through you need more rooms, or wow, the characters don't care about X. I need to change this. I need to do something different. That's okay. It doesn't mean what you wrote or what you designed or built is no good. I think that's a sign of maturity, and it's a sign of intelligence for you as the game master and the players to look at that stuff and say, I'm going to change this to fit the needs of what's going on. I think that's cool stuff. I think it's worth thinking about from that perspective. So anyway, hopefully somebody found that useful besides me. You good, Sean?
I am good.
All right, let's go to die roll. Let's move on. We're starting to hit terminal repeat.
We are. I noticed that.
Yeah.
Die roll 2 to 4 miscellaneous points of gaming and geekery we want to bring to you. First one this week was, I don't know if it's whatever, Pradhama, I don't know. The world's largest cave castle.
Cave castle.
Yeah. Somebody on our Discord, like, I think, is it this one or somebody else posted another one that somebody lives next to over in Europe?
Southwest Slovenia, halfway up.
Yeah, might be Nubis, actually.
Wow.
Nubis might.
It appears in records from 1202 and listed by Guinness World Records as the largest cave castle.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's some James Bond shit there, boy.
That's a...
I think Nubis lives like at the foot of the hills of this thing.
That is, wow.
So there you go. It's cool. We want to share that. Anyways.
It's a local Robin Hood-like hero fled the castle. Oh my God. There's this. Read the article. The adventures write themselves. That's good stuff. Anyway, carry on.
Second one is The King of Dungeons on Drive-Thru by Baz from What Would a Smart Party Do? I do. Where is that? Why is that not here? Let me load that up. Why isn't that show?
Grand Scheme Publishing.
There we
Dungeons.
go.
Okay.
King of Dungeons. That he, wow, that is really not cool. That he did. Well, it had to do with rival adventuring parties. And he said, rival adventuring parties, I created a book based on it. Like, so this is an interesting, the write-up's really cool. Go and check it out on drive-through if you're so inclined.
Yeah, it looks cool.
He's got some modifications.
Very cool.
So
Awesome.
there you go. There you go, Baz. Next one is Dragonlock and Ravenfell, the Humble Bumble. Some 2D, 3D stuff you can print.
Oh, Fat Dragon Games goodies.
Kind of.
Okay.
Is it Fat Dragon?
It says 2D and 3D printables from
it is
Fat
Fat
Dragon
Dragon.
Games.
Okay, yeah.
I'm looking right at Fat Dragon. Fat, not frat.
Frat Dragon.
Fat,
Like
F-A-T.
frat boy. Yeah. Party on, Wayne.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah,
It's got the Dragonlock GM screen of doom. That's what you need, Brett.
That's pretty freaking cool. That's not a bad idea.
I should commission a BSer to print that thing. Although I never play because I don't play in person. No, I don't know.
Sad.
What are you going to do? But go in there. It's up for a little while. I don't know when it ends. But it helps out charity Extra Life, Children's Miracle Network. So there you go. And you get some cool stuff. And then lastly, I could have pulled this out. I do not recall who put this in our Discord, but I was like, what? They're like, oh, Sean, you probably know that this exists. And I'm like, nope, I didn't. It's a Forbidden Lands session generator.
Nice.
Yeah, man. So you could just hit one of these buttons on this website and it'll do what it says and it ought to just refresh. So if I say new castle, I just hit the new castle button and it changes everything on the page.
Very cool.
Yeah, very great resource. And a great resource even if you don't play Forbidden Lands, because some of this is like system agnostic. For example, if you look at Murdar Talk's Treasure Vault and you read all of it, it tells you room, but all of it's just description. There's no mechanics involved, so you could use it for pretty much anything.
One of my the app no longer exists, or at least I think it fell apart at some point. But it was on the Apple Store for the longest time. It was a random name generator, and then encounters and rooms. But it had these 3-4 different functions. I used it all the fucking time, and you could just pick give me Gaelic sounding men's names, give me this, give me Arabic this, give me Persian blah. You grab all this cool stuff. It was really fun just to thematically grab on this stuff. I totally dig these types of things, if nothing else, just for inspiration. Because sometimes you're looking at the map in front of you, looking at the stuff you're trying to put together for the session, and your brain's just like, you just flatline creativity. You're like, I got nothing. And this is like a little defib kick to your creative brain. So good stuff.
I mean, if I was playing play-by-post, here you go. Like, I'm just going to hit a button and load this website, and I'll be good to go.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's it for die roll for this week. So I apologize for not putting that out. Who put those links in for Forbidden Lands generator? But it's a great resource. I'm going to start using that thing.
Very cool.
So BSRCon this weekend. We're not recording, and then so 2 weeks from today we'll be recording again the next episode. What are we going to be talking about then, Brett?
We're going to be talking about, I've labeled this one, I Want to Believe. It's talking about verisimilitude. What do we want? What does it take for us to believe? Because we all want to believe in the game world and so on and so forth. So we're going to dig into that a little bit.
So it's our Disney episode.
A little bit.
Believe.
Only because I'm presenting the topic that will probably be a room full of dead babies or something like that. So won't be quite as Disney-esque as you want.
That's fair. Yikes.
But anyway,
All
that's
right.
next.
Sounds like fantastic. Which I think as scheduled will be the 31st. It'll be the 8th. Is that the 8th of February?
I don't know. I suck at calendar. Let's see here. So that is 31st. It'll be the 7th of February.
recording
Yes.
here on YouTube Live if you'd like to join us. Thanks for everybody that did show up in the chat. Appreciate it. If you found some smidgen of value in this episode, give us a like if you would be so kind. We really appreciate it. Otherwise, you can find this podcast at the audio version at your podcatcher of choice. We really appreciate it. Otherwise, I think that's it. I'm Sean.
And I'm Brett. Good night and good gaming all.
This episode of Gaming in BS produced with help from the following BSers: Joe Swick, Old School DM, Tony Sugarloaf Baker, Eric Jeppesen, Andy Hall, Chris Steele, Remy Bilodeau, Jason Hobbs, Mark Tasaka, Marco Froelich, Pure Mongrel, Brett Pazinski, Brandon Barnes, Eileen Barnes, Dan LaValle, CW Mellencamp, Victor Wyatt, Craig Huber, Roger Braslett, Stefan Dragonspawn, Jared Rasher, Finolf, Ray Otis, Jim Fitzpatrick, Old Scoozer Roleplaying, Curtis Takahashi, Larry Hout, Ron Bishop, Mark Richmond, Chad Glayman, Craig, Howard Bishop, Josh Wallace, Corey Welch, Angus, Eric Salzwedel, George Sedgwick, Robert Nemeth, Brian Kurtz, Laramie Wall, Eric Avia, Andy Olson, Jeff Seifert, John Kayward, Corey Gonzalez, Maurice, Niall Diamond, Aaron Ralia, Jeff Goad, Aaron Coleman, Brian Rumble, Rich Wishan, David F. Baylog, Harrigan, Melissa Bashinsky, H.N., Colcago, Eric Tavola, Huskarl, Yorkis, Rex, Ghost GM, Mike Hess Jr., Rory Weston, Jim Ingram, Daniel Garrett, Eric Frankhouse Presents, Phil McClory, Adam Grotjohn, Jay Plata, Ed Nyes, The Duke in Purple, Isaiah Aries Christian, Larry Hollis, Craig Shipman, Todd Sharp, Orcus Dorcas, Chris Shorb, Michael O'Holland, Wayne Peacock, Mike Coleman, Miniature Master, Kevin Keneally, Zagrave, Vornak, Farty McButterpants, Andrew Lear, Craig Chunglo, Eric Lunsford, Ty Prunty, Feeling Good Lewis, Ziga Paradzik, Nick Westbrook, John Mahoney, Crystal Egsted, Zalea, Todd, and Hypnocode. Thanks, BSers.
This has been a Litterbox Studio production.